crimped hair is really in right now. But is it tacky? Is it tacky? I don't know. I actually kind of like it. I'm still in my summer colors right now, so I'm feeling the crimped vibe a little bit, but it was actually Sammy on Jersey Shore that made me want to crimp my hair. So here we are. Look at it. Look at it. What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today's video, I'm talking about my period. And never in a million years did I think that I was going to be excited to have a period, but here we are. And if you didn't see my previous video, I made a video a couple weeks ago talking about some issues that I had discovered through some blood work that I had done because I knew something wasn't right. So if you haven't seen that whole video, go watch that one first because this will make a lot more sense. But I asked you guys in that video if you wanted to hear a little bit about my journey and what I was doing and some things I was supplementing with. And so many of you wanted to see it. So that is what today's video is going to be about. And obviously, as a disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. I'm not telling you what to do. This is just what I have done. And obviously something worked because I did not have a period for over an entire year, and I officially just got my period back, and I am so happy. So that tells me that something is working properly. So I want to just kind of update you and let you know what that's been looking like. So taking it back just a little bit, just so you have a little bit of history, I was on the NuvaRing since I was just about 20 years old. So it's been almost a decade of artificial hormones just pumping through my body, right? And you know, I briefly mentioned this in my other video that when I started having these issues with presumably my estrogen in 2018, because I was on hormonal birth control, when I took those tests, everything came back normal because obviously the birth control was providing me with progesterone and estrogen. So it didn't appear that I was in menopause. When I had gotten off the birth control initially, obviously that was at a very high stress period of my life, right? Like I had just gotten divorced, Tuxie had just passed away. So it wasn't really like abnormal to me that I didn't get a period. And I also knew that when you come off of hormonal birth control of any sort of hormones, it's gonna take your body a while to adjust and kind of get back to a baseline. So when I had missed my period the first couple of times, I was like, well, you know, it's probably just the stress and it's probably this and that. And I was still training on top of it. So I didn't really think much of it until I really started getting into those heavy menopausal symptoms, like having this severe night sweats, and there was just like so many other things like the migraines. I was dealing with like weird skin issues and just things that were very, very like specific to menopause that I was like, okay, something is not right. So when I got my blood work back, it turned out that I had less than 4, I think it was like two estrogen, and I was in post-menopausal, that's how bad it was. And of course, the initial suggestion from the doctors were, well, like you can get back on hormonal birth control or you can take estrogen. And my thought process was like, well, that's kind of defeating the purpose because I wanted to get off of hormonal birth control and being on any type of like added hormones. So I didn't really want to go that route. I'm going to just kind of walk you through some of the things that I have learned over the course of the year that can lower your estrogen. Again, this is not like a one size fits all thing. And I will say that some of the supplements that I'm going to be referencing are anecdotal. It's not that they're like scientifically proven to lower or raise your estrogen. Some of them are not even approved by the FDA, but we already know how that is with supplements. So just, you know, take it with a grain of salt. Bless you. Take it with a grain of salt, but also I did get my period back. So maybe it was a combination. Maybe it was a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I don't know. But the very first thing that I started doing was obviously trying to decrease my stress. And a lot of times, especially with female athletes, doctors and endocrinologists will tell you that they typically see athletes at very, very low body fat who have been chronically dieting forever or training at intense levels will lose their periods and or go into menopause because of the stress and the fatigue that their body is under. Well, I didn't really think that the training was like the base of the problem. Could it have played a role? Sure, but I didn't really stop training at the intensity that I had been for years. And my body is pretty accustomed to it, but what I will say is I cut back on 2-a-day trainings, and I was only doing that like once or twice a week, and I was making sure that if I was doing a strength session in the morning, that the cardio or whatever I was doing was not intense, and it was a lower steady state type of cardio or something that was not going to be directly interfering with whatever strength work I had just done. So a lot more recovery in between my sessions. But one thing I will say is that I have never been a person that's chronically dieted. I've never been on long restriction periods. Luckily, I've never struggled with an eating disorder or anything of that sort. So I wasn't really like focusing my efforts on like the training and nutrition side, because I felt like for me, I had that relatively under control. And of course, you guys know, like when I got off birth control, I immediately went into a growing phase. So I was eating a lot, and I didn't do CrossFit for 6 months. So I definitely felt like that really wasn't the root cause of the problem, but in turn, just to kind of rule out everything, I did lower the training intensity. I am not somebody who is going to stop working out, because to be honest with you, I feel like that's gonna create other problems for me. And I just didn't want to do something that was going to make me unhappy when I was already dealing with like an unhappy problem. You know what I mean? I just lowered it a little bit, and I focused my efforts a lot more on the natural side of the supplements, which I did a ton of research on. I literally spent, I think, like 2 whole weeks like going back and forth, comparing ingredients, thinking about what things would be good to mix together and to have to balance each other out. And for those of you who don't know, I also went to NTP school. I'm a certified nutritional therapy practitioner, and we did learn a lot about the estrogen balancing with natural supplements and foods and things like that. But of course, it's not like, oh, you know, if you eat soybeans, it's going to 100% raise your estrogen. There are just some suggested things. So in terms of food, one of the things that I started doing was increasing my fat intake. This was also because my cholesterol, my LDL, was elevated, and there are some studies that show there can be a correlation between low estrogen and high LDL. Because I wasn't certain if mine was genetic or it was related to the estrogen issue, I decided to go ahead and increase my fat intake in the form of like avocados, using olive oil to cook, making sure I was eating whole nuts. I switched up my nut butter from peanut butter to almond butter. I did a lot more like salmon, with eating the salmon skin and higher fat cuts of meat. And it didn't really raise my fat too much. Like in total, I think it was like 15 grams maybe, but it did end up working out for me. I felt a lot more energized, and even though like calorie wise it was kind of the same, I did feel better eating a little bit more fat. So really heavily prioritize my sleep, and I feel like if you guys know me, you know I already do this, but I was like insane with it. And I have been taking this supplement from Driven for, it's coming up on like 4 years now, and I take this every single night. Blend of magnesium, kava, melatonin. It is so amazing for recovery, but I was starting to take it a little earlier so that I could wind down at night and just really make sure that I was prioritizing all aspects of the recovery and not just like going to bed and going to sleep. I mean, I was like taking hot showers at 7 o'clock at night. Then at 7:30, I would take my R&R supplement. I would do some stretching, keep my blue light glasses on if I was looking at the screen. Like I was in bed at 9 o'clock for the better half of this year, making sure I was asleep by 9:30, no later than 10. And I just let my body naturally wake up, which ended up being around 6 o'clock. So making sure that the sleep was like high on the priority list, and if I didn't get a good night's sleep, I did not train the following day. Also, another thing that I've tried to implement, which I really haven't been doing the best job at because I don't really like the taste of fermented foods, but fermented foods are something that I've been trying to add in, like a little bit of kimchi here and there. I really don't like it, I'm not gonna lie, but I was willing to do it for the experiment. Of course, cruciferous vegetables, that's something that I include in my daily intake anyway, so I didn't really have to do anything like too crazy with that, but I did add in flax seeds to my smoothies, my oatmeal. I would even like grind them up and put them in my pancake mix. So that was something that I did. I kind of always do chia seeds, but specifically flax seeds. And then we move on to these supplements. So again, take it with a grain of salt. I'm not a doctor. This is just what I purchase and what I use. I will link them in the description box for you. But you saw that little container that I showed you in my vlog a couple of videos back. All of those were for whether it was my LDL, my heart, or the estrogen. All of those were specific, and I did take a lot at once. So again, I'm not sure if it was like one of those things that worked a little bit more than the other, or if it was a combination, but either way, I'm gonna read you off the list of things that I was taking. And I'm still taking currently, but I wanted to just make sure that I got the full like 1 month, 2 month on it. So I knew that there was for sure a correlation between those supplements and getting my period. The first one for estrogen specifically was Women's Dim Complex. I also took Life Extension Estrogen, vitamin D, and fish oils from Driven, but that was also just something I was taking already. I just made sure that I was taking 2 now per day, 1 in the morning and 1 in the evening. Specifically for my liver, this is something that can sometimes be correlated with LDL, with estrogen, because your liver, if it's not functioning properly, you're gonna see other things be elevated, specifically because your liver is not being able to process certain things. So to supplement for my liver, I took red yeast rice, and I took 2 of those in the morning. These Tudca, Tudca bile salts, that was 1 in the morning on an empty stomach, and raw garlic pills, 2 in the morning. This also can be beneficial for your heart, so it was kind of like a catch-all for me. And then citrus bergamot was also for my liver. So those were just like very natural supplements that I took that, who knows, if it helped my liver, if it helped my LDL, my estrogen, whatever, it did something altogether because your girl got her period. That is pretty much the rundown of what I changed. Honestly, it wasn't too drastic. I think just having like lower stress in general. Obviously at this part of my life, I am no longer in like a chaotic life, moving across the country and getting divorced and having that be plastered all over the internet. So I think just having lower stress probably helped a little bit too. But I will say that I didn't get my period back until I added in the supplements. So I did everything that I could before leaning on supplements, and then I supplemented. And just as like a rule of thumb, I feel like that's something that all of us should do, whether it's for a specific issue that you're trying to like counteract or just your overall health. Supplementation should be the very tippy top. It's just supplementation, and it's not going to change everything, because I'm sure it helped and it played a role, but if I wasn't doing all the other things outside of it, I don't know that it would have helped. So anyways, that is the update for you. I was very excited to make this video. I hope it helps maybe someone. I don't know. I know this is kind of like a boring topic if those of you who probably aren't struggling with your estrogen, but if you are, let me know. Leave me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe, drop me a comment if you've done something that you feel like helped. But I just wanted to give you a little update on this Monday with Mander. So I love you guys so much. Thank you as always for supporting me and watching my videos. It means so much to me. So I will catch you in next week's video, and I will be doing an updated blood panel. I have like 2-ish more weeks to go, I think, until it's the 6-week mark. So I'll be looking forward to see how that turns out for me after all the supplements and the things I've been doing. So I'll keep you updated, and I will see you in next week's video.